Several of us from the public safety community who stood in the dark on the south side of Indianapolis to disclose that the investigation of the circumstances of the Richmond Hill explosion had become a homicide. Today's verdict confirms what was apparent to the investigators virtually from the first day, and that is that the explosion that had occurred 9 days earlier was a senseless criminal act that resulted in the horrific deaths of Dion and Jennifer Longworth, injury to several others, unparalleled property damage, and a loss of a sense of safety and security for the residents of that neighborhood. By the conviction today of Mark Leonard and the guilty plea of Monserrate Shirley, we have completed two significant steps in achieving justice that we pledged for the residents of Richmond Hill on that night.
Is it important for you to get life without parole? Talk about the procedure there and how important that is to the people of Marion County.
Yeah, and I'll address that in a second. I also just wanted to add, as I did yesterday, that I hope everyone can appreciate the tens of thousands of hours that would go into this investigation and this prosecution. I commend Detective Sergeant Jeffrey Wager and his IMPD investigators, Lieutenant Mario Garza and his IFD investigators, the agents of the federal ATF, and our trial team for their extraordinary work in achieving this result. To answer your question in regard to life without parole, obviously we'll go forward with that hearing tomorrow, but I think with the guilty verdict on all the counts that occurred today, that's effectively going to be the result no matter what the decision is tomorrow on the LWOP.
Terry, this has been an emotional case, in trial, out of court, leading up to it. When you heard the guilty verdicts, what did you say to yourself? How did you feel?
Well, it's our unfortunate reality that we have to interact with individuals who have experienced this sort of loss on a weekly basis, and obviously we've had just continuous contact with all of the residents of Richmond Hill, not only the parents of Dion and Jennifer, and certainly I felt a great sense of relief for them. As we've said repeatedly, and I think the day that we announced the charges, there's nothing we can do to relieve their grief and sorrow. All we can do as a public safety community is attempt to achieve justice, and certainly I'm relieved for the parents and all the residents of Richmond Hill.
Terry, what do you think this means as far as the deliberations tomorrow regarding the potential of a life without parole penalty?
Well, and that will be up to the court to decide. As you know, the defense has waived jury on that question, but again, with a guilty verdict on the knowing murder, all the other counts, I think effectively whatever sentence Mr. Leonard receives is going to be for the rest of his life without regard to that decision.
What do you think this means as far as Bob Leonard's case and the other co-defendants? Possibility they will look at this verdict and determine that perhaps a plea agreement like Monserrate Shirley is in their best interest?
Well, certainly as we go forward, we face the prospect of 3 more trials starting in January with Bob Leonard. And with any defendant, as Monserrate Shirley did, if someone is willing to take responsibility for what they've done, then we'll have discussions with their counsel. That has really not occurred in any significant manner up to now with any of the other 3 defendants, but I would hope that there'll be at least those discussions going forward.
What did you say to the families, the neighbors, and your prosecution team afterwards?
I said nothing to them. I gave them all a hug and said congratulations.
Yep. John Longworth shook your hand after the verdict was read. Did he say anything else to you?
He thanked us and thanked our team as they have repeatedly. And I can't say enough about, again, the investigators, our trial team, the amount of work. Only those of us who see what's going on every day knows the amount of work that's gone into this result. And
again, about the scope of this. This was likely the biggest trial we've seen in Marion County. As you said, tens of thousands of hours went into that.
Right, and it's just not only the trial team, but other folks in our office who have been involved in the work all along. The initial investigation by the fire department, as well as the ATF, was on the scene. State Farm Insurance obviously was on the scene, and so there's just this countless number of individuals who have contributed in one way or another to the end result that we have here today.
Terry, has this put any strain on our budget? 3 more cases. Talk about what that means to the budget.
Well, and up until now, no, we've not incurred any extraordinary costs in our budget. We were able to conduct the Bassard trial without asking for any additional funds, and so far we've not had to do that here. We don't really have any really significant costs other than just having our trial team up here for the week. As I've said repeatedly, we don't get paid overtime, and so it's just a matter of having our team up here for the 6 weeks for the trial, and hopefully we'll not have to ask for any additional funds. We don't have another trial scheduled for any of the others until January, which would run into next year's budget.
What was the reaction of victims and family members when this verdict was announced?
Oh, I think I saw more than a few tears and clearly a lot of hugs among the family members and their friends there. So,
do you have a message for anybody else who might want to concoct some sort of scheme for insurance fraud here in Marion County?
53 counts of guilty. Yeah, that's. I said repeatedly when this first occurred, as obviously we were privy to the investigators and what was being discussed, and that if anyone understood the level of sophistication and science involved in investigating fires, explosion, that sort of thing, no one would ever give thought to doing this sort of thing, because as you heard during the 6 weeks of trial, obviously the sophistication of the investigators and their ability to determine what occurred is impressive. As you now know, when the explosion occurred, the investigators immediately knew that something intentional had, from the simple fact that the microwave had blown from the inside out. And building upon that, obviously, led to the development of the case that we finished here today.
Terry, what do you think the strongest part of the case was? Was it Monserrate Shirley? Was it something else?
No, I think it was the combination, and I believe our deputy prosecutor I believe that we could have obtained this conviction even without Monserrate Shirley's testimony. Clearly Mark Duckworth, who was a longtime friend, was very critical. But again, just the accumulation of evidence, the fact that initially the Leonards had said they'd not seen each other for 2 weeks, and through just good old shoe leather work, found videos from at least 2 different bars where they were together in the week prior to the investigation. So the cumulative effect of all of this led to what was obviously a very quick verdict here today. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.